I am the host of Trust and Believe the Gospel. I go by the name of Nobody. I always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody, and that is Jesus the Christ. We are back by popular demand for another takeover show of the Paradigm Shift TV 314. And y'all know that we don't mind sharing this gospel with y'all, and we appreciate y'all wanting us and welcoming us back to the platform. On today's show, I got my co-host, Mr. Co-host to you, Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green, and we're going to get into a little bit of his background and how he became the conscious Christian that he is today. How you doing, bro?
What's going on, bro? I'm doing pretty good, man. It's a blessing to be back on the panel, man, and I plan on, giving my spiel about, my journey from initially being introduced to the conscious community, even a little before that, what I learned, and pretty much what led me back to Christ.
Right. Okay. Well, I did an interview on the Paradigm Shift already, so some people already know my backstory. Seeing as if you haven't did one yet, I feel as if it would be necessary for us to do this, seeing that we have been asked back by popular demand to take over the Paradigm Shift TV again. So, I know you know what I'm saying, and I know that you were somewhere around 23, 22 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So if you can give us a little detail about you being that age and coming into consciousness, and let the audience know, what you learned and where you gained and where you came from at that time in your life.
Okay, before we do that, I want to correct an error that I made, and greeting everybody. I wasn't initially a Christian. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to put that out there like I was just a Christian and I walked away and then I ended up coming back.
Right.
I never gave my life to Christ initially to even say that I was a Christian. So I want to correct myself on that.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what I thought too. When me and you had a conversation, or however, and when we used to talk and stuff, and I was like, hey man, when you got conscious, was you, a part of Christian First? And so yeah, I'm glad that you put that out there, because I was even one of those people who thought that you were Christian First and then went into the conscious community. But the floor is yours, bro. Go ahead.
Okay, but yeah, just touch on that a little more. Like I can't even say I was a avid church goer. I was on and off, with church and all that. I was not at all a student of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't a student of the Christian doctrine itself. So, like I said, I can't really necessarily say that I was a Christian because I hadn't even, fully submitted to Christ anyway to say that I was a Christian. I was just a churchgoer, but in the midst of that, I started getting increasingly more curious about, the history of, us as African Americans and, how we had come to where we were back in, 2012, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the year I started, reading more about African American history. So, I started going to my local library. I started reading certain books about, just more about the civil rights era, Jim Crow. I was reading about, the Ku Klux Klan and some of the organizations that were formed under the tutelage of the civil rights movement, like SNCC, SCLC, different other organizations, and just a plethora of things, like from all the way from slavery, the civil rights era, all the way into the Black Power movement. You know what I'm saying? And it was just, for me, it was kind of exhilarating to find out all the information that the school curriculum hadn't touched on. You know what I'm saying? During Black History Month and things like that. So as I kept reading, I started to kind of put things together as to, you know, where we were at that particular point. And then what was contemporary Black history, and why, like, first of all, I wanted to know, like, why we interacted with each other in the manner that we did. You know what I'm saying? And the second thing I wanted to learn is like how great was our suffering in this country. You know what I'm saying? So I started out with books on various books on like I said, the civil rights movement, the Jim Crow era, slavery, Black Power movement, etc. So
Right, you faded out. Okay, there you go. Yeah, it
oh,
faded out for a second, but you're back now. Go ahead.
okay. But yeah, what I was saying was in reading various books on that particular topic, there were two books that really caught my attention. And the first book is called the Afrocentric Idea, and it's by an Afrocentric scholar named Molefi Kete Asante. And the Afrocentric idea is pretty much predicated on the social, philosophical, and cultural views, theories, etc., that express an African worldview as opposed to a Eurocentric worldview. So that really caught my attention, and it really opened me up to the idea of an African worldview, period. So that book, and I'll touch on that book a little bit in a few minutes, but another book that really caught my attention was a book called The Killing Rage. And The Killing Rage is a compilation of essays that address the issue of racism and how it affects Black people, and essentially what should be done to eradicate racism. You know what I'm saying? So that just gave me a deeper understanding of racist rhetoric and the racist mentality, period. But to go back to the Afrocentric idea, the Afrocentric idea is the book that was like the catalyst for my curiosity beyond just African American history. I wanted to know more about African history as well. So with that in mind, being that my local library didn't necessarily have many books on African history, I had to resort to like the internet, and YouTube was already established and popping back then. So I would look at various videos on YouTube about even certain things that I remember from the book that touched on African history. And one of the things that the book talked about was ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet. So in remembering that, that's pretty much what I searched for on YouTube. So in doing that, I subsequently got introduced to a plethora of other Afrocentric teachers, such as ASHBY, Dr. Yeah, man. Yeah, AFROCENTRIC, man. That dude's something else. But it was him, Dr. Ben, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Charles Finch, who else? Bobby Hemmett to a degree. I used to look at his videos and stuff too.
I want to say this about the names that you mentioned. It's funny because I saw a video probably a few months back where people were bringing up those names in those books to Sarnetta. And that was pointing out how, you know, some of the information was wrong, and Sarnetta agreed to it. Now I was shocked to see him agree to it. But when they said, so is it right for us to call their information pseudo? Sarnetta was like, I hate that word. I hate that word. We're not going to say that their information was pseudo. We're going to say that they just didn't have a lot of information at that time that we have today. ain't that something? But the reason why I bring that up is because isn't it funny how the Afrocentric ideas that we do find on YouTube, as you said, once you want to go look up the videos, it's funny how the first people that we find are people who call those people master teachers. And then now, as of today, we're starting to see people say, well, hey, their information was misinformation. Ain't that funny?
Right. That's very, very ironic. And the thing for me is when I first was searching through YouTube videos and I got introduced to those particular figures, it's like, you know, you know, if you looking at their videos at face value, it really does look like they know what they're talking about. Especially to a young mind who's, you know, pretty hungry for knowledge and you know, wanting to learn more about Africa and the Afrocentric worldview in its totality. So you know, I was looking at their videos. Every time I would go to the library, I would look at least 1 or 2 videos every time I went. So, you know, in being introduced to them, I would be the most profound thing that I remember learning from people like ASHBY specifically was that you know, he would say that, you know, first he was saying Christianity was, you know, that's the white man's religion. The Bible, that's the white man's book. And not only did he say that, but he also would do comparisons between what's in the Bible and what some of the core tenets of Christianity are, and what he claimed to have found to be within, you know, the Kemetic framework. So what he was basically trying to say was that what we find in the Bible and what we, you know, and what Christians hold to as far as their doctrine and you know, their beliefs, it was basically a ripoff of what was already established in Kemet. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
Once I found that out, of course, I, you know, looked at more videos about the subject, about his, you know, the videos he touched on in regards to the Bible and where certain things came from. Like he would say that the story of Genesis was stolen from, you know, this Kemetic idea of man being created on the potter's wheel. You know what I'm saying? And for me, not knowing no better, not having really read Genesis fully, I was like, well, dang, man, that must be true then, since he's saying it, you know, because he's saying that he got almost 40 years of field research under his belt. You know, he's saying he a student of the Benz, so he got to know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So that led, yeah, and you know, as a result, that led me to get more interested in what Kemetic history and spirituality was all about. So
Hold up. Before you go into that, you know, as more crazy, as you know now, we call him the point man. You know, he the dude that we never see really break down. Then he just point at pictures and point at walls and say, "Hey, this what this means." I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's funny.
it is like once you realize that he don't really know, he don't really know what he talking about in regards to the hieroglyphs and stuff like that. When you look back on it and see the old videos, it is funny because it's like the people are eating it up, man. The people he taking on those tours is they eating it up, man. So it's like but in you know, I started in looking at his videos, you know, I would run across some of his lectures as well. You know, lectures he would hold in buildings and stuff like that. And he would mention these books, or sometimes he would have books on on display as a part of his presentation. So one of the books that he put on display, or he used in his presentation, and one of the books that's very popular in the conscious community, is a book called Christianity Before Christ. You know what I'm saying? And it's by John G. Jackson. And the book basically is basically saying that what I mentioned earlier, that it's basically exploring the notion that the elements of Christianity itself were like copies of elements that existed thousands of years prior to the establishment of Christianity and stuff like that. And just to give people an example who may not be familiar, in the book, it tells you that there were a plethora of other deities that did the same things that Jesus Christ did. There were a plethora of other deities that that had 12 disciples that were crucified and were resurrected. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. They all say that, but when you look for their primary sources, you don't find none. But go ahead.
right. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that book had any primary sources, if I'm not mistaken. But
See,
it led me into and I'm not gonna mention every book just for the sake of time, but it led me into kind of somewhere immersing myself into ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic concepts and how they viewed the world and stuff like that. So just to mention a few other books, the ancient Egyptian book of the ancient Egyptian proverb, that's the name of it, by Dr. MUATA ASHBY, who's in that same circle with AFROCENTRIC and them. I mean, it's basically a book of wisdom teachings, supposedly predicated on, the concept of MUATA. And from what I remember, a few of the proverbs sound similar to the ones you will find in biblical, proverbs and things like that. So, of course, if you're being told that the Bible is a copy of Kemetic teachings and literature and spiritual concepts, and you get a book and you looking in these proverbs and you see something, that kind of sounds like something that I read in Proverbs. Because like I said, I wasn't an actual student, but I would flip through the pages every now and then just to look up certain things. And that kind of almost, to me at that time, it was affirming what, people like AFROCENTRIC was saying.
already seen, right?
So I was like, dang, man, like I got to get more of this stuff. So I ended up getting.
And what gets me about these wisdom teachings, because of course, being a Christian apologist for as long as I have, people pull out certain verses too. Of course, which now that the book of Proverbs and wisdom teachings are just that, teachings of wisdom. Wisdom doesn't die. There's nothing in the Bible that says, oh, we thought of this first. I'm talking about when it comes to like for example, a wisdom saying would be to obey your mother and father. Well, because you see that in the Bible and you see it somewhere else, that's a wisdom teaching for all time. Literature wasn't always around. You see what I'm saying? So we still see today that people would take wisdom teachings, and find them somewhere else and then see them in the Bible too, and then try to be like, well, that had to be copied or be stolen, when the Bible never said that this specific teaching was original to the biblical text in the first place. So I just want to point that out as well.
Yeah, nah, you really make a good point, because if you think about, like you said, biblical proverbs, those proverbs aren't exclusive to the Bible. These were wisdom teachings from that particular region. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So it's funny how AFROCENTRIC never pointed that out, but
Misinformation. Don't they never
Right,
point it out to us? Go ahead, bro.
right. But going into the next book that I got by Dr. MUATA ASHBY, it's a book called The Kemetic Tree of Life. You know what I'm saying? And it's in and of itself, it's an interesting book. And it's predicated on the supposed methodology of achieving a higher spiritual consciousness. And it also talks about uh, practices, such as how to activate your chakra points through meditation, which, if I'm not mistaken, is originally a Hindu practice and not it doesn't have its inception in ancient Kemet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But me not knowing that then, and I'll say this, I never tried to practice activating my chakra points or
Yoga.
or anything like that. It was just I was, taking in the information. Now I had plans to start, practicing it, but I was like, okay, well, I got to get a full understanding of how to achieve this or how to do this. So yeah, I didn't just automatically see it and try to do what they was, saying in the book to do. But it was a lot of interesting things that it had in it. And one of the interesting things is that the book itself, I would say it was anti-biblical, not just because of the practices, but because of what it had to say about how Christianity got into Egypt.
Right. And ain't that like, it's like no matter what you read, well, I ain't gonna say no matter, but when it comes to these type of books from these type of authors, it's like the only really reason why it seems to be why they wrote the book is to try to discredit Christianity. Like if the title of the book is The Kemetic Tree of Life, ancient Egyptian metaphysics and what cosmology for higher consciousness, shouldn't you just be teaching me about that? You see what I'm saying? It's
Exactly.
like why does everything have to try to discredit Jesus? If what you're saying is 2 + 2 = 4, then teach me that. Why are you trying to teach me something else if what you have is the truth? And when I come across stuff like this, it really just makes me want to believe in the Bible even more. But go ahead, man. I just want to, because that stuff like that, it kills me. Like,
Right. And it's and I'm not for certain, but I'm thinking that the whole tree of life, the whole tree of life concept, and the fact that it's a part of that title, I think they might have got it from what's in the Bible.
most likely, more than likely, because they always try to say stuff like Christians are stealing from Kemet, but when we look at these words, when we look at some of these practices that they do, they're really stealing in reverse. Because when we look at ancient Kemet, they weren't doing none of that stuff that y'all talking about now. So yeah, I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if that Tree of Life title was taken from us. Yeah.
Right. And it is ironic that a lot of these books, even the books that I read, and I can't say that I'm an expert on this, but I read at least, I want to say 12, 13 books. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not bragging, but I'm just, giving you an estimate of how many books that I read over the stint, because I was only in the conscious community for a little over a year. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
you
saying? Like a year and a half.
bragging, bro. Yeah, you bragging. I ain't read that many books about Kemet. But go ahead.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. All of them weren't predicated on Kemet.
Just say it.
Yeah, they were just all, they were all Afrocentric. That's what all of them had, or most of them had in common.
Right,
Um,
right.
but just with me, going into that, and just recently getting on Facebook, I started searching for stuff on Facebook. So they have a plethora of different, and that's initially when I got introduced to the conscious community. That was through Facebook. So I started joining these groups, And then I found out what it was first I found out what the conscious community was, and then I found out what it was to be conscious. You know, reading all these books, I didn't even know that these were some of the same books that people who were calling themselves conscious read. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I got kind of really deep into it then. Once I discovered that, and I befriended man, I want to say hundreds of people from various groups and even from different ideologies, but as long as they were pro-Black, Afrocentric or whatever, then I was down with them. You know what I'm saying? And it was like that initially. But as I got deeper into it, and as I started meeting more people, being exposed to more books, more videos, and of course the memes. You know, you always got to have the memes in there.
You got to have the memes.
Right. You got to have the memes in there. So, you know, it started off sweet, but it progressively, you know, started turning sour. You know what I'm saying? Because with all this information that I had, and all these you know, different concepts I was being introduced to, thinking that I was no longer under the guise of religion, but I was spiritual, and that as ASHBY always says, that the enemy, you know, was no longer my deity. You know what I'm saying? Like he always likes to say, because I thought I had liberated myself from an Afrocentric worldview, and I had, you know, adopted or discovered, you know, the Afrocentric worldview. I thought I was free. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was free from all the chains and shackles put on our brains by the oppressor. So, man, it just was, like I said, it started off real sweet, man. You know what I'm saying? And then, because I was meeting people, not only on the internet, but I was meeting people locally. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't meet a whole lot of people locally, but, you know, I was still meeting people. You know, I would go to Columbia, you know, I would meet people. I would go to bookstores that were Afrocentric and stuff like that. And just, you know, I was just all in, you know what I'm saying? So my ultimate goal was to view the totality of my reality was going to be viewed through an Afrocentric lens. You know what I'm saying? That was what I was trying to achieve. You know, with that, you know, like I said, I was all in, but man, maybe I want to say maybe 6 to 8 months into it, you know what I'm saying? I started, you know, kind of noticing little things here and there with the people that I had, you know, befriended on Facebook, and the stuff that I was seeing in these groups. One of the first things I noticed is that, you know, of course I wasn't going to church on Sunday. I wasn't, you know, that was the first thing from my mind then, going to church on Sunday or whatever. So, but what I would notice is that a lot of the people on my timeline who called themselves spiritual or conscious, they would attack, you know, Black Christians from an ideological standpoint, and even from an intellectual standpoint, because they would tell them that they were brainwashed, that they were dumb, stupid.
Yeah, dumb, stupid.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, they would mock Jesus Christ, man. You know, they would even go as far as to say, you know, F Jesus and you know, all this and that.
If I could throw this in, when they say Christians were dumb and stupid and all that, in my opinion, I feel like, you know, their mothers were Christians, their grandmothers, their grandfathers, their cousins, you know, the ancestors that they do know are their ancestors, like their grandmama, great grandmama, and all them. Most likely, they were Christians. So how can you disrespect the ancestors that you do know, but claim to be paying respect to ancestors who you don't even know if they're your people or not? I've never got that either. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. And I think what charged, you know, the way that they did things was this kind of deep seated emotional, well not well yeah, emotions, like
Yeah,
deep seated
yeah,
emotions, bitterness
yeah,
because of what happened to our ancestors, and you know them not realizing that when you mock Christ or you mock Black Christians, man, you mocking your own people. It
right,
doesn't matter that you think you've come out of that, or you've evolved beyond Christianity and the Bible. That don't matter, bro. Like, you know, you gotta realize that even if that's what you think, you know what I'm saying, you
right,
can't, you're not supposed, don't look down on your brother and sister just because they are Christian or whatever, man.
right,
That ain't, you know what I'm saying? That ain't
right.
the
I mean,
the, the
where's the
right way to
love?
go.
You know, it's
Right.
like where's the love? You know, it's like they hate on Christians, but then we show love, especially to our brothers and sisters. Now we could talk about the the bad stuff that Christians have done throughout the world, but I'm willing to bet anybody that the Christians have done more for the world than any other organization on the planet, and I'm talking about positivity. So for people to promote a message that I'm Black and I love all my Black people and I love my ancestors and I respect my ancestors, then how could you disrespect your direct ancestors? Like how you just said, like we know that some of y'all people who you know were Christians. You have family members today that are Christians, and that was one of the things that made me feel. Now I wasn't in the conscious community as long as you, but that was one of the things that made me feel like it was disingenuous, because it's like y'all claiming all this love and all this peace, and you got my yacht, and you got balance and all this, but all I see is hate speech. All I see is downplaying somebody. All I see is people being hypocritical. They try to pull contradictions out the Bible, but all I see is you contradicting your own ideology, as I said earlier, as in claiming to pay respect to your ancestors and loving of your ancestors that you don't know, but then disrespecting your ancestors that you do know because of what they believe. So yeah, I that's just always been crazy to me, man.
Right, right. And it's like, um and it's like they did this ritualistically, bro. Like I kid you not, they did it ritualistically, and it's like, um you know, when it really came to a climax, when there was this woman, and you could tell she was an older woman. She was, you know, maybe in her mid to late 40s or whatever, and she was all into the spirituality and you know, promoting Kemet and all this and that. And I saw one of her posts one day, and she was talking real reckless about Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and it was strictly because they didn't, you know, they weren't a part of Kemetic spirituality. You know, Martin Luther King was a Christian, and and Malcolm X was a part of the Nation of Islam. And I'm like, hold up, like you can't say that about them, because number one, both of them brothers are pillars in you know, in the Black community, and their work, you know, they risked their lives to get us to where we are today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Martin Luther King, the sacrifices that he made in the name of trying to get equality for our people, and Malcolm X, for the Nation of Islam as a whole, they did something psychologically for our people, that it can't be denied. It doesn't matter whether you agree with the ideology or not. You can't deny what the Nation of Islam did for our people. And you know what I'm saying? It's like she wasn't even trying to hear that. It was like, you know, they still wasn't, basically she's saying they was still wasn't nothing, because they was one was a Muslim and one was a Christian. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, I had to unfriend her after that, because that was
Because they believed in a Abrahamic faith, you know, and like I say, man, that stuff is, it really makes them look bad. It really makes them look bad to claim to be for Black people and to respect their ancestors, but then disrespect ancestors like Dr. King and Malcolm X. You know, even us Christians, we don't agree with Malcolm X spirituality, but you don't see us knocking the brother down. You see what I'm saying? And then so it's like for y'all to have all this peace and love and where's the peace, man? Where is the respect? You see what I'm saying? Like y'all don't have any, man. So it's like if I'm even before Christianity, of course, you know, we are who we are, you know, before being born again. But even before me giving my life to Christ and becoming a Christian, I was never a hateful person because I knew that wasn't the way. I don't care what I was gonna believe in. I knew hate wasn't the way. So like to be around conscious people for that long that I was around them, or you know, into the ideology and stuff like that, it's like that's probably what made me back up off it as soon as I did, because it's like it wasn't no respect, it wasn't no love, even though y'all out here preaching unity and love and respect. What if okay, since y'all are so much for y'all ancestors, what if you go read something about one of your ancient ancestors? Just say one of your ancient ancestors was a pedophile or something. Is that still your boy? Or you know, should you still be practicing what he practiced, knowing that he did what he did? It just don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying? To be that way. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Like, and just to bring up the point you made earlier about Christianity, like a lot of people mention, oh, these Christians that you know that did this and did that, and you know they Christians or whatever. That like to me, they first of all they were only Christian by their own self definition, because if you claim to be a Christian and you out here massacring people, putting people into bondage, starting wars or whatever, trying to force people to convert, like that ain't you can't call yourself a Christian by the definition of the word. You can only you can only do it by self-definition, and there's no way around it. So, you know, I don't even like. I realized that happened, that's historical, but to say that those people were Christians and followers of Christ is a farce to me.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that because it's kind of like what Brother Pianki put out in his car video the other day. You know, Christians have a doctrine. You know, and if the doctrine says do A, B, and C, and if a person is doing E, D, F, and G, then they're not a Christian. I don't care if they give themselves that title. And it's kind of funny because if we look at it from the hood, we know that if a person call themselves a blood or call themselves a crip, we know the doctrine of blood and cripping. So we know that if a person just pretending to be a blood or pretending to be a crip, from the people who are actual bloods and actual crips. But it's funny how when we get to the Bible, and the Bible also has a doctrine too, just like blood and crips, it's funny how we can't read the doctrine of the Bible and see that, oh, well, these people are Christians according to the doctrine, and these people aren't Christians according to the doctrine. That's hilarious to me as well, because these people claim to be so knowledgeable and to be so conscious and to be so awakened, but you can do things in your everyday life that you know, can tell A from B and B from C, but you don't have that same type of logic and reasoning when it comes to the Bible, you know?
Right, right. And speaking of knowledge, that was the second red flag that went up for me, was the knowledge that was being purported by these so-called, you know, conscious people, spiritual people or whatever, because like it was inconsistent. You know what I'm saying? Because so because they reject the God of the Bible, you know, I would see some people saying, you know, okay, well, the Son is the Most High, or the Son is God. Talking about the physical
Yeah.
Son,
The one that
God
walked
that
on
we
water.
see. Yeah, according to them. But they would say that, then they would turn around and say, oh, well, you know, the black woman is God. You know, the black woman,
Yeah.
you know, she was here first and she reproduced asexually, and you know, that's how black men came on the earth, through her. You know what I'm saying? So she God. And then you had people saying that the black man and the black woman were God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then you had people who were saying that that God was androgynous. You know what I'm saying? Then you had people that saying there was no God, that they were God. It was no God outside of them. So,
But they make fun.
man, I was
But they
like,
make
man,
fun
this.
of the different denominations throughout Christianity. But there's one thing about the different denominations in Christianity. We all believe Jesus is the Son of God. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We all believe, no matter about the little small differences as to why I may be a Baptist or this person may be a Methodist, or as to why I may be, a missionary. Those are really small arguments. Now I know they don't know this, but if I can give clarification, those are small arguments among the body of Christ. We are unified in who Jesus being the Son of God. We are unified in him dying for our sins. We are unified in him resurrecting 3 days later. It's like we have a doctrine. You see what I'm saying? But for y'all to claim that the Bible was stolen from y'all or copied or whatever term y'all want to use, can y'all please give us the correct doctrine first? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And it was it was that that was the main thing, bro. Like I was like, well, according to because I'm not actually practicing the spiritual tradition, but I'm studying the ideology and getting familiar with these concepts and these like the literature, and they can't even agree on who God is. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, like, and so that kind of made me, kind of think like, man, like something ain't right about this. So, going a little further, I was, I started, thinking about it. I was like, well, you know, how can these people really be spiritual if their definition of God primarily is attributed to some physical quantity like the sun or the black woman or the black
Hold up
woman
one
and
second,
the
bro.
black man or something like that. So I'm like,
You're starting to sound like a robot just a little bit. If you could probably move over.
okay,
Okay, you
is that
back now.
better?
Yeah, it sounds clear now. Go ahead.
Okay. But yeah, like I was saying, man, like it was like I started thinking about, well, if these people are truly spiritual, then why are they defining God or even reducing God to a physical quantity such as the sun? Because they
Right.
claim, oh, the sun gives life, and without the sun, everything would die. Or we touched on why they thought the black woman was God, and the whole notion that there's no God outside of them, that they are God. So I'm like, man, something ain't right about this. So I made a post on Facebook one day, and it was like I asked the question. I was like, how can you call yourself spiritual and not believe in God? And I got over 300 responses, and that was the most I ever got on Facebook. I ain't real popular on Facebook like that, but I got so many different answers that I can't even remember them. I can't remember all of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's when I was like, man, bro, like I might have gotten myself into something, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't walk away, I was still reading and still studying, but I was like, man, it threw up another red flag for me. So
On that subject of still studying, I know we was talking the other day and you was bringing up some books to me. If you can, just for a second, could you go into this book, Who Better Benefits from Global Violence and War? I know that was the book that we was talking about. I just wanted you to touch on that for a second.
oh yeah, man, that's that was one of the books I read early in my journey. And it what was in the book was, it just was, it was a book that pretty much explored the root of violence on a global level. You know what I'm saying? And it goes into numerous disciplines that express this type of violence. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, it changed my whole perception on what wars were really fought over. And it changed my perception on just, just some of the things that our country spends money on, like the Department of Defense. Like they spend like billions of dollars
Over half our
funding that.
budget. Yep, over half our budget. If I'm not mistaken, right now it's up to 54% of our American budget go to wars.
Right. And the book stated that money could go to eradicating poverty. You know what I'm saying? Better healthcare, stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually true. So, that kind of, changed my perception on some of the things that this country puts financial emphasis on, and that, just a lot of these wars that are fought. And it's no disrespect to the soldiers, because the soldiers out there risking their lives and stuff like that. So there's no disrespect to them, but it's like, it seems like these wars that are being fought in the name of anti-terrorism are actually wars fought for conquest.
Right.
Conquest.
And like you said, because when it comes to war, the Bible makes it known that it's a time. It's one of those things the Bible said it's time for, but done righteously. As we know, even the Israelites in the Old Testament, they were not only just a nation, but they were also an army. God would use them to go to war with other nations to get certain points across. So, and as you said about the book, when you said it kind of opened your eyes to the healthcare and the food and stuff like that. Isn't it? I mean, food and education. Isn't it kind of funny that when it comes to education, Christians are the number one builders and founders of, well, first off, they were the first people to open up public schools. School cost money before Christians came along with public schooling. And isn't it also funny that Christians are also the leaders in healthcare when it comes to free healthcare? If people didn't know, Christian hospitals were the first free hospitals. As of now, when we look around the United States and the world, we can see a St. Jude, a St. Paul, a St. this, a St. that. We have the most hospitals. We have the most food pantries as well. That's something that you mentioned. Isn't it funny how all the things that these other groups who are anti-Christian claim to be working for, Christians have already done it and have been doing it and still are doing it to this day?
Yeah, it's a lot of irony in,
We're the leaders of it.
right. Like it's like when you and a lot of people in the conscious community they couldn't have done this, because you gotta, if you're gonna try to discredit an ideology, the least you can do is figure out what it's done in its totality from a pragmatic standpoint. From a pragmatic standpoint, Christianity has done more for the world than any other ideology you can name. You know what I'm saying? So, I only wish I would have knew that, earlier, like on my journey, so I would have never had to go through. Well, you know what? I take that back, because going through the journey that I went through and it leading me to Christ, I see first I felt real guilty about it because what I was following and what I was believing, but I've grown to see it as a blessing in disguise, because I know the mentality of a lot of these people who claim to be conscious. You know what I'm saying?
That's what made
Some arguments I already know.
I was going to say that's what made you the powerful brother you is today, you know, and that's true. Honestly, that's how you got that tag conscience on your name. You know, you couldn't even really add that to your name, honestly, if you've never been conscious, and you know, according to their definition in the first place, you know. And I always like to say that we couldn't give our testimony unless we went through a test first. You see what I'm saying?
Right. So, you know, so getting back to what I was touching on earlier. Once I made that post and I got all these responses, and a lot of them were predicated on blasphemy. You know what I'm saying? And I just felt like something wasn't right about that. But that didn't necessarily stop me from, reading and studying certain concepts and things like that. So it didn't all come to a head until I started, I started really reflecting on, so-called conscious attitudes and actions. Because first I tried to kind of brush it off, but it just kept happening, and it was even division in the conscious community, because certain people were believing one thing while other people were believing something else, and then that would cause a schism. People were trying to one up each other on information, and it was a lot of egoism and just it was a lot of hardy spirit people, man. Like, so man, eventually I kind of backed away from it. You know what I'm saying? So in doing that, I was kind of at a crossroads, because I was like, man, what am I supposed to do now? Like, with me having and it wasn't because I put the time and effort and was reading all these books or whatever. It was just I just could tell, like, from my experience, that something wasn't right. So lo and behold, you know what I'm saying, I ran into a brother by the name of Rian. And I started watching his videos, and at first, I ain't even gonna lie to you, man. And as long as I've known him, and I've known him over 3 years now, I've never told him this. But when I first saw one of his videos where he was actually addressing one of the beliefs I held to, as far as what the conscious community was reporting about the Bible and how it was a copy of Kemet, he started going in on the sources. You know what I'm saying? And me being basically a novice to researching and citing sources and stuff like that, he started naming off these, and he let it be known, like, this information came from these European mythicists, occultists, and people like that. So I was like, man, this dude don't know what he's talking about. So I kind of brushed it off. But then, after a few days, I started looking in the back of the books, and I started, like, really citing sources, because I had never done that. You know what I'm saying? I was reading all these books, but I wasn't, really citing the sources. I was retaining the information, but I wasn't really checking, for where the information was coming from. So, once I started doing that, I was like, man, his dude actually right about this, man. And I started looking up who the people were, like Madam H.P. Blavatsky and Manly P. Hall and all those people. Right. Gerald Massey, Kersey Graves, Wallace Budge, all these different people who are Europeans. And it shocked me at first because I was like, man, I'm thinking like, so how is this Afrocentric if all these, you know, he's getting all this information from these Europeans? So, and the thing about it, bro, I had just not too long ago brought the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and I was like, okay, so once I read and understand this book, I'm gonna start actually practicing the spiritual tradition. And man, before I got to really dig into that book, you know, I found out that, you know, this information ain't coming. This information really don't have no African influence.
Yeah, all
You know,
European.
right? And so, man, once I found that out, I was like, man, you know what? I'm not even. I'ma just believe in God, and that's gonna be it. I'm not going to put myself under any spiritual tradition, any religion, or none of that. I'm gonna just believe in God, you know, and that's just gonna be it, you know, because I was like, man, I can't go back to the Bible because the Bible ain't for me as a black man. You know what I'm saying? I can't go back to the Bible. The Bible, that's the white man's book. You know what I'm saying? I was still under that belief that was the white man's book. Christianity is the white man's religion. It was forced on our ancestors. So, you know,
I'm sorry to cut you off. It's funny you say that because I was there too. You know, once I got sucked out of it, and I got sucked out through Dr. Ray Higgins. Unlike you, I was already you would say a Christian, but what I would call a churchgoer, you know, a person that went to church, didn't really know a lot. But I got sucked out of believing that too through Dr. Ray Higgins and stuff like that. And even though I came back before then, Brother Berean was the first person I found online as well who was talking about the conscience community and where the books came from and primary sources and secondary sources. And that inspired me to start my channel as well. Brother Berean, I feel like he's a good dude. We've had debates together, talking about together against other people, you know, in Messenger and stuff like that. I've been on his platform. I've been in his classes. You know, he give me shout outs on his videos and stuff like that. And just like you said, man, I came to the point too at a time in my life to where it was like, I'm just gonna believe in God, whoever he may be. I'm just gonna do what I know is right, not lie, not steal, whatever. And whoever God is, you know, he ain't gonna send me to whatever the bad place may be because I'm doing right. So I just wanted to touch on that because I fell down to that point in my life as well at a point in time.
Yeah, man, it was just Brother Berean, you know, and I'm not saying that getting no cool points with him, but he was a godsend, man. You know what I'm saying? And he was, you know, he came like at the right time, bro. But you know, like I said, I was like, man, I still had my doubts about, you know, the Bible and, you know, its origins or whatever. So, in watching more of Brother Berean's videos, because I was like watching his videos like every morning before work. You know what I'm saying? Watching his different videos. Yeah, because it's like he in watching his videos, you know, I found out that, you know, Christianity wasn't the white man's religion, the white man's book, and it actually Christianity, both of them actually, you know, had their inception near near Africa.
Right.
You know, and this was long before Europeans even knew about Christianity or the Bible.
And watch this too, though.
You know,
once
so
we actually think
through that,
if I could add this in there on that specific subject, once we really think about it, we can see. I mean, I'm like you though. Some of that stuff I didn't know as well till I came across it. But really, once we think about it, once we read the Bible, we can see that, you know, Egypt is in it, and when we look at the map, Jerusalem is like what 600 miles from each. You know, like it's really the same area. But I don't know why.
right.
I don't know why it didn't click for me either, though. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason why it didn't click for me because I was so biblically illiterate. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
me
saying?
too. Yeah,
I
me
was
too.
one of those church goers who just, listen to what the pastor say and never, never really read the Bible for myself. Like I said, I read certain passages here and there, but I wasn't no real student of the Bible. So,
Right.
once I found that out, I started, I started with YouTube, you know what I'm saying, searching for, Christianity in Africa and stuff like that. And that's when I got introduced to people like Dr. Eric Mason. I got introduced to Jerome Gay.
Yeah.
And not too long after that, I got introduced to like Nefertiti. Shout out to Nefertiti. I just talked to
Got that. Oh, give me a second, everybody.
her. Apologetics
Come
is
on.
all about. You know
Okay,
what
my
I'm saying?
bad.
And
Hello, bro. I thought you left. You faded out. And you just came back in. Everything you said, probably for about up to the last 5 seconds, we didn't catch it. It blanked totally out.
oh man, I'm trying to move, so I don't know if it's the spot I'm in or what. But
You
what was
back
I
now,
saying?
though.
Oh yeah, I was saying that like subsequently from watching Bereans videos and finding out that Christianity had a place in Africa. um I did more, I watched more YouTube videos or whatever, and I got introduced to people like Dr. Eric Mason, Dr. Jerome Gay, um and not too long after that I got introduced to Nefertiti.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I want to give her a shout out because she really puts in work along with the rest of them. You know what I'm
Shout
saying?
out
And
to
yeah, we had a pretty good conversation earlier today with her, with each other. But it just, and I want to say this too, while it's on my mind. Uh, it was actually a sister who was like an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? Cause see, me and her had met while I was still in the conscious community. And, we would go back and forth, but it was never nothing that was contentious or anything. It was just, I didn't believe in the Bible and she wholeheartedly believed in the Bible. And I remember the first time we encountered each other, we ended up exchanging numbers and we talked that same night. And, we ended up talking for like, it was like I think 3 hours, almost 4 hours. And it's like we agreed on most things. We just didn't agree on the biblical ideology and stuff like that. Because I was still, um, into Kemet or whatever. But to make a long story short, coming out of that, me and her were still in touch. So once I told her that I was no longer in the conscious community, but I wasn't sure that I really wanted to go back to the Bible. She was one of the people, along with Berean and, Dr. Eric Mason and Jerome Gay and Nefer and all of them, that facilitated in me coming back to the Bible. So I want to give her a shout out as well. If she ever hears this, she knows who she is. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Man, that sounds powerful, man. So, if there's anything else that you want to add, man, to this, and to your conversion to becoming the conscious Christian before we close this out, man, you can go and do so at this moment.
Okay, yeah, man. I just want to, first off, I want to let everybody, because I forgot about that. I want to let everybody know which scripture really opened my eyes. You know what I'm saying? And once I started, this is what helped me to realize that the Bible was true. I was scrolling through Facebook, and somebody just happened to post a scripture, and the scripture comes from 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 1st through the 5th verses, and it was talking about, how people would be in the last days, how people would be slanderous, how they would lack self-control, how they would be lovers of self, and all that type of stuff. And I was like, man, that's exactly how a lot of people are today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that is just like when I saw that particular scripture, the light bulb went off in my head, bro. And that's when I really started getting into the Bible. And you know, it's like once I started getting into the Bible, like I started with Genesis, you know what I'm saying? I started with the creation and stuff like that. And looking back at what AFROCENTRIC was saying, I was like, man, you know, you start realizing what these people were saying wasn't true. It's almost like they didn't even read the Bible. They were just going off of what these Europeans who preceded them by 100, 200 years, and you know were putting in their books. You know what I'm saying? So it was a couple of things that that they had told or said in videos that I had believed previously, but in reading the Bible itself, I found out that those notions weren't true. They were false. So what I want in saying all that, you know, if there's anybody out there who can even remotely relate to my story, if they walked away from the Bible due to this notion that Christianity is the white man's religion, and the Bible is the white man's book, and that Christianity was forcing my ancestors this, that, and the third, I want to tell them, man, do before you leave Christianity, learn Christianity. Before you leave the Bible, learn the Bible. Any questions you may have, there's plenty of resources out there that will answer your questions. You know what I'm saying? That's really all I wanted to say. And I hope my my story wasn't too boring for the audience. You know what I'm saying? Whenever they hear this. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, bro.
Nah, man, your story wasn't boring at all, man. I didn't hear nothing but a powerful message throughout all of that, man. Some people have that same story, you know, and a lot of them are still out here lost, you know, including myself. You know, I also have a story of leaving the Bible and honestly, sounds similar to yours, coming back to Christianity through Hebrew Israelites, but actually being a part of it, as you mentioned, a Black Hebrew Israelite woman helped show you the way. I actually, you know, joined the group online and with it. So, yeah, I don't feel like your message was boring at all, man. For those people who are still out there searching for knowledge, and for the people who are younger, who um, may not have to go down the same road that people like you and I have went down, because there are videos and messages like this being put out online. You know what I'm saying? As for the listening audience, we appreciate y'all for listening in. And as you already know, I am your boy Nobody, always trying to tell everybody about somebody who's trying to save, who can save anybody, which is Jesus the Christ. And y'all know we have fun each and every time coming on the Paradigm Shift, taking over the show. And we appreciate y'all wanting us back by popular demand. Myself, Nobody, and my co-host Jerome Green, the conscious Christian Green, Mr. Co-host to you. Jerome, if you want to give any last closing words to the listeners, man, go ahead and do so, bro.
Okay. All I wanted to say is once again, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be a part of the channel once again. And you know, hopefully I'll be back on later, and we can continue to roll, bro.
Appreciate that, man. And if y'all take nothing else away from this message, I just want y'all to know that if you're being honest with yourself, you don't have to do the research or any of that. But once you do go do the research, once you do go look everything up, if you're being honest with yourself, it's going to lead you back to Christ. I don't care what road you're down right now. Throw out all the pride, throw out what people may say. Same way you did when you left Christianity. You didn't care what people had to say. You got up enough courage to do what you had to do to believe in what you believe in. If it takes for you to go do the research and go do the looking up and the reading and the finding and the digging, if you're being honest with yourself, I can guarantee you, not almost guarantee you, not halfway guarantee you, I can guarantee you it's going to lead you back to Christ. So if you take nothing else away from this message today, take that away from you. Take that away from this message. We appreciate y'all for listening in to how my brother Jerome became the conscious Christian, and we look to see y'all in the next video. We love y'all. God